So here's the thing about Warframe. There is one resource that you desperately need, and that is credits. It is used for pretty much almost everything in Warframe when it comes to crafting, building, etc, etc. So this giant crusty crabs of a robot who poops out credits and other useful things is quite an important thing in Warframe. Yes, that is right, I present to you Profit Taker, and this guide will be your all-inclusive Profit Taker guide from start to finish, and after this video, Profit Taker will be easy peasy for you. This video is going to be split up into two parts. The first part is how to do Profit Taker as a beginner, and how to get the necessary gear so you can do Profit Taker comfortably, and secondly, how to min-max and do Profit Taker on an average around 2 minutes to 3 minutes. Now this is not a speedrun guide, this is a Profit Taker guide for credits. I want to make that clear. Another disclaimer I want to make is that I do not want to encourage people that are new to Profit Taker or don't have a lot of gear to leech. I want to encourage newer players watching this video to be able to get to a point, grind up, get to a certain point where you can contribute and or solo it even on a budget. Alright, so now that you know what to expect in this video, let's dive straight into it. Leave a like on this video and hit that subscribe button. Let's start with how to actually access Profit Taker. It's simple. You need to be rank 5 with Solaris United, i.e. Udico, and then you get access to the Profit Taker. Now, while you're doing the absolute long grind of the Solaris standing, which takes at least a week or two of grinding, in the meantime, here's what I would suggest. Get yourself Chroma Prime Salon. I would suggest the Prime because obviously it's slightly better and you're going to form with the Prime version at least 2 or 3 times, and as much as you want, and you will probably subsume your normal chroma for the helmet ability. Chroma Prime should not be too expensive to get. It's about 40 platinum, 50 platinum right now in the market. Then start preparing your Zor. If you haven't ranked up with Cetus, I would recommend to do that as well. And then start getting your Nukor as your starter weapon, or your 10 at Detron if you've completed the quest. Now I know it sounds like a lot, but hold that thought. We will go over these later on in the video, so just keep up with me. So grind up your Solaris standing, and in the meantime get your chroma and everything else and start getting your gear, just so that you can start preparing over the weeks when you're grinding up. Now there are 3 phases for Profit Taker, and then you have access to the 4th phase, which is basically Profit Taker, the boss fight. On phase 3 you will get a Gravity Mag, which you'll be able to put on your Archguns, which allows you to be able to do the boss fight. Phase 1. First, you gotta go to cave, kill 6 enemies, find the dead quill, search the body, fish for clues. Once you have 3 clues, you have to do mobile defense, kill enemies for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Then after that, kill drone, kill enemies around the drone, and then you're done. Phase 2. Go to enrichment lab, kill 3 directors, go outside, steal data mass, then extract. Phase 3. Go back to the enrichment labs, upload the satellite data, run as fast as your little legs can to reboot the antenna systems before the time runs out, and then the Profit Taker arrives. Now, do as much damage as you can to him to get the data, then you have the Gravity Mag. Now the Gravity Mag is put onto your Arcgun, which gives you access to Profit Taker, as you need the Arcgun in your gear wheel to actually be able to kill him. However, you can use your Necromech with the Arcgun there equipped. You just need this as a requirement. I will go over what you need later on in the video. So now phase 1, 2 and 3 is done. You've got your Gravity Mag. Now you have access to the Profit Taker. Now before we go in all happy and dandy, let's actually go over the gear that is needed, and I'll explain in depth why you need everything, and then we can go to a step-by-step process for killing Profit Taker and her mechanics. Starting with the Warframe. This is a credit guide, so we're going to go Chroma Prime. Now, why Chroma? For those of you that don't know, Chroma's 4th ability is called Effigy, and basically when placed down, you have a high chance of doubling your credits. This is why Chroma is used for Profit Taker. Now, before we go over the mods and the build, let's go over the 2nd and 3rd ability and the subsumes as well. His 2nd ability is called Elemental Ward, which as you can see has 4 elements which give different buffs. Now the main ones you want to focus on are cold and heat, but primarily cold, as cold gives you extra armor and a damage multiplier. Now the reason I mention heat is because let's just say you got the build and you're running PT and you're finding yourself dying a lot, or you're struggling to survive as you don't have Magus Repair, then heat will re-heal you and keep you alive a lot more. Otherwise, if you are surviving, always go for cold. To make sure that you are always on the cold element so that you don't have to change it in mid-fight, make sure that Chroma's emissive color is changed to white, and you'll see here it will always be on cold. Now let's go over his 3rd ability, which is Vex Armor. As you can see here, when damage is dealt to shields, your armor is increased, and then your damage is increased when damage is done to your health. Now, this ability is very good. It's just that the one slight downside is that you have to, in quotation marks, charge it up in the beginning of the fight, because you have to wait for damage to be dealt to you. to charge up the damage bar. This can carry on in the fight as long as you keep recasting it, because it can be recasted while it is active. Otherwise, I would say subsume Eclipse over, but please understand that this makes you slightly less tanky, so you will need to be more careful as you're losing a lot of armor by losing Vex armor. These are all your choices. You can play the game how you want. Like I said, these builds are just templates and you don't have to follow them exactly. Now, the reason why we use Eclipse is because it's raw flat damage and it just scales a lot easier than Vex armor. Now, regarding the mods, we build for high strength here as I use Eclipse, so I want to have as high damage as possible and then high durations. Then we try and keep our efficiency up. Now we go both Umbral mods as we need some HP for this fight, as you will die quickly without it. Chroma is quite an expensive one for this part of the game, as a lot of players use an Umbral former. However, you only need to form a Chroma twice to make this build work. You don't need Prime Flow here, you can use the normal one, that works too. Streamline, Adaptation, Blind Rage, Transient Fortitude, Narrow-Minded, Steel Charge for more Zor damage, and then Preparation so that you have more energy in the beginning of the fight. Also, we use Steel Charge so that we can get 4 extra capacity if you're struggling with capacity. You can run a rank 0 adaptation to save space. When it comes to the Arcanes for Prophet Taker, a must have is Arcane Nullifier. This is so that you don't lose your energy the whole time during the fight, and it's really important to have your energy up, especially for the end of the fight when you pop your 4th ability, because it drains your energy quite fast. You need to have this Arcane. It's very, very important. Then Arcane Guardian, but Arcane Guardian is a little bit expensive, but it does give you extra armor for more survivability. If you do not have Arcane Guardian or any other armor mods, you can take that off and use another one of your choice, and then you can use Vex armor so that you do less damage, but you are still alive more. So it's better to be alive than die the whole time. Otherwise, Arcane Tanker, if you are deciding to use the Archgun launcher instead of your Necromech, however, I would advise against it because it's a lot slower. Alternatively, you can use Arcane Strike or Fury. Now, this is flexible. Like I said, you don't have to follow this exactly. Just do it until you're comfortable in the fight. You don't need to speed run Prophet Taker. If you finish Prophet Taker in 2 minutes 30 seconds to 4 minutes, you are fine. That is a good time, and you are at least faster than the index, so that's good. Now let's talk about the weapons. The weapons, there are 2: Opticor Vandal and the Zenith. Now, Optical Vandal can be acquired from the Thermia Fractures event or from Barrow. I would say do the Thermia Fractures event as you get it for free, and also it's good for the Amalgam mods and doing Exploiter Orb as well in the future. Then the Zenith, which is acquired from Login Day reward of 150. Now that's quite a long time, I understand that. So what makes the Zenith so OP is the infinite punch through, meaning that you can shoot through the entire terrain to kill the pylons, which is just amazing. Now remember, the way Prophet Taker works is as follows. There are shields that have elements to them that cycle when you do enough damage to those shields. The elements will change, so you want to build as many possible elements as you can across all your weapons. So what you need to do is you need to build flat, cold, and corrosive on your primary weapons. So for example, if I go over here to the Optical Vandal, for the budget build, this is what it's going to look like. Now if you want the elements to be this exact order, then you need to do the same order of where these mods are. I'm talking about specifically the elemental mods. You don't have to use primed mods, you can use the normal ones, but obviously if you have the primed Cryo Rounds and primed Bane of Corpus, you will do a lot more damage, and then you will min-max further and kill things quicker. However, you will build for Electricity, Toxin, Multi-Shot, which is Split Chamber, Bane of Corpus to do more damage against Prophet Taker, Vial Acceleration for extra fire rate, and then Vigilante Armaments for more Multi-Shot. You do, I find quite often, even though it's 24%, actually crit quite a bit. So I would say use Vital Sense as well, or you can just use Critical Delay to get more crit chance and so on. But I just tend to go for flat damage when it comes to Prophet Taker, as it's easier to kill him that way. Cryo Rounds, you can use Prime Cryo Rounds to do more damage, but Cryo Rounds to give you that flat cold, and then Amalgam Serration or Serration works as well. This is a very good Optical Vandal build to do enough damage against Prophet Taker, especially if you're going to be subsuming over Vex armor for Eclipse. When it comes to the Zenith is pretty much built the exact same way, except for the Zenith. Okay, I know you're seeing 8 former, but just understand that I messed up the build and I was testing and everything like that. It should be around 5 former if you're using, or 4 former actually, if you're using the budget build. Now let's talk about the secondaries. There are 2 that I would recommend: the Tenet Detron and the Kuva Nukor. Now the Detron will do more damage than the Nukor because the Detron has an alt fire button where if you press the mouse button, you literally mag dump into the Prophet Taker. and just literally do a whole bunch of damage very, very quickly. Whereas the Nukor does a lot less damage. Now, when it comes to these two weapons, you want to, for both of them, get a magnetic element Nukor and Detron, because then it gives you that extra free element. So when it comes to the Nukor build, this is the build we're basically gonna go. You don't have to use the primed mods, but unfortunately the Nukor just doesn't do a lot of damage. However, it should be fine if you pair it with Eclipse and things like that. It will sustain enough damage for you to do it. Basically, you're gonna have to use Hornet Strike to give you extra damage, multi-shot, Toxin with a Pistol Pestilence to give you more status chance, Deep Freeze for cold damage to give you viral, and then Primed Expel Corpus for extra corpus damage, critical chance obviously, and then fire rate and multi-shot. Heated Charge, of course, for that extra flat heat. You want to build heat, radiation, magnetic, and viral. So that's 4 elements on your secondary. It's very, very important. The Detron will be built pretty much the exact same way. So we'll go Barrel Diffusion, Expel Corpus, Target Cracker maxed out. I haven't maxed it out. Hornet Strike, Pistol Gambit, Deep Freeze, Pathogen Rounds, and Heated Charge. So built the exact same way as the Nukor, same elements, and so on. This is the budget version. And then if you want to use the better version, which I will go on about later on when we min-max, I'll talk about the Rivens and so on and so on. Now let's go over the Zors. Zors, in my opinion, is the main focus for Profit Taker and one of the main things when it comes to building for Profit Taker. And if I have to be truly honest, I don't think Profit Taker is worth running without a Zor and at least a rank 1 Exodia Contagion. Now I know it is a bit pricey, but we'll get into that shortly as to why I say that. Now I will put up on the screen 3 Zor combinations that I would recommend using for Profit Taker, which you can get from Hawk on Cetus at rank 4. Now the Zor that I'm using is the Bala, Quoth, and Varjeet Jai 2. The Varjeet Jai 2, I cannot say it for the life of me, is the main link that you want to go. The grip can change and then the head can also change as well, but I go Bala. So it's basically a dagger, so it's fast attack speed and good amount of IPS and also crit chance and etc, etc. Now there is an arcane called Exodia Contagion. Now this is what carries you in Profit Taker in my opinion. As you can read here, after doing a bullet jump or double jump, melee while aim gliding launches a projectile that explodes on impact. It basically throws your melee at the enemy or an area. And when you start leveling it up, as you can see, the projectile damage is increased by 400% after traveling 30 meters. Now this Exodia Contagion does insane amounts of damage. It will basically one-shot each element with Exodia Contagion, no problem, which is why I say getting yourself and working towards a rank 3, you don't have to get yourself 1, you just have to get a rank 1 or something like that is really, really important. It's expensive, I understand that, but it's really, really worth the grind and investment to do Profit Taker nice and easy and comfortably. When it comes to the budget build, we're going to go Stinging Thorn for daggers, Fever Strike for toxin, Volcanic Edge to build gas, Gladiator Might, Pressure Point, Smite the Corpus, Organ Shatter for critical damage, Electricity because you want flat electricity, and then Sacrificial Steel for crit chance. Now as you can see that we have the IPS. IPS stands for Impact, Puncture, Slash, for those of you that are a little bit confused and don't know that. And then we build electricity and gas so that we have pretty much every single element here except for flat toxin. That is the only element that we are missing. Now with regards to Exodia Contagion, one last thing I want to talk about and mention, basically what makes this so strong as well is because you have impact, puncture, and slash and electricity and gas on your Zor alone. Exodia Contagion, when it actually impacts and hits whatever area it's hit, it actually procs blast, so you have one extra element on your Zor, which is what makes it really, really good. Now if you really cannot afford getting yourself a Zor and Exodia Contagion and you just want to do Profit Taker, alternatively you can go and get yourself a Stropher and then you can build for the same elements, but you will not be able to get Blast unfortunately, so you'll be missing 2 elements by doing this. And yeah, so you can build this, you don't have to build this. This is just something I threw together. But if you build this here with Eclipse, you will do enough damage with the Stropher, especially the Stropher because it does a lot of damage. It just means that your fight will be slightly slower. So now that we have all the weapons ready, let's talk about the focus tree. So one of the biggest problems about Profit Taker is the knockback. You get knocked back all the time and you need some sort of knockback resistance. So using Unairu and getting yourself poised is literally the best thing you can do, and in fact is the only thing that you should go unless you have prime sure-footed. Then that's a different story. Poise, it gives you a free prime sure-footed. Now this is pretty good because it synergizes with you using your Necromech, hopping in and out of Operator and Warframe. will basically refresh poise the whole time, so you don't actually have to worry about it and you will always have knockback resistance. It makes the fight infinitely easier. Now let's go over the pets. Just use Smeeta. Seriously, just Smeeta. Get yourself, that's awkward, wrong config, get yourself Charm. Just use Smeeta. That is literally all you need to do. I'm not going to go into depth here. I did make a guide on this if you want to check that out. I will put the cards up in the top right of the screen. But yeah, build this build with Smeeta. Get yourself your extra credits. Basically, you can double your credits, even 4 times your credits if you're insanely lucky. There has been quite a few runs where I've doubled my credits to 1,000,000 credits, and that was in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It's a lot. So yeah, just get Smeeta. And now let's move on to the Archgun of choice. Now, when you get your Voidrig, you will get yourself your Mausolon. Now, the Mausolon is good, but it's not instant. So this is the build that I had to build for the Prophet Taker. I landed up putting 4 Former into it, and even had a Riven with critical chance and crit damage. Not that great, but anyways. Yeah, you can use the Mausolon. However, I would highly recommend getting yourself the Corvus. Now, the reason why I use the Corvus over the Corvus Prime is because you have a higher Riven disposition, so you can get better stats when it comes to doing your Rivens. As min-maxing with Rivens is very, very important when it comes to Prophet Taker. So this is the budget build. You can use normal Rubido line barrel. You don't need to use the primed one. The reason why we use Corvus is because it basically 1 to 2 shots to the limbs, even in your Necromech. It's because here's how it works. When you actually activate your Archgun launcher from your gear wheel, you get stuck in this animation that is painfully long and often gets you killed if you're not tanky enough. And that's why if you can hop into your Necromech and instantly shoot down the limbs fast, it's a lot better. Which is why I recommend getting yourself the Corvus, because you can basically 1 to 2 shot the limbs even in your Necromech. Now, the other weapon that you can use is the Velocitus. I unfortunately do not have it leveled up, but yes, this weapon does one-shot the limbs as well and do a lot of damage. So you can use the Corvus or you can use the Velocitus. When it comes to the build, you basically want to do flat damage, as much damage as you possibly can. Critical focus, dual rounds, very expensive, but you can substitute this one for something else. Hollowed bullets, critical damage. Shell rush, which gives you charge rate because the Corvus requires charge rate, not fire rate. And then parallax scope for crit chance. Combustion rounds and electrified barrel for radiation, because we build for radiation here. The Corvus will serve you well, so get yourself the Corvus. If you don't have the weapon, I think it's like 30-40 plat on the market right now. Now, I know this may sound like a lot of platinum is being thrown into here, but if you are leveling up your Cetus or your Fortuna standing, you're busy preparing, you will have enough platinum to get this if you do this bit by bit every day. And you will be surprised at how fast you can do this, because Prophet Taker is worth the investment. Let's talk about the Voidrig. You don't need that many mods. I don't even have a lot of mods. Shield capacity, health, and then some armor, because you're going to be pushing your second ability for your Voidrig, which is basically like Rhino's Iron Skin, which makes you invincible. So yeah, you're good in terms of the Necromech. Just try and get the cheap, easy mods. Otherwise, if no mods, it's not a big deal. And then we have one last thing to go over, which is, I know it's a lot, but just bear with me. Now, the last thing we need to go over is the Operator Arcanes. Now, there are 2 that I would specifically say you should get, and that is Magus Repair and Magus Lockdown. The reason why we do Magus Repair is on Void mode, you heal your Warframe within 30 meters by 25% health per second. Very, very strong, because if you get low HP, you just hop into your Void mode and you literally back up in full HP in like 3 seconds. So it's very, very good. Magus Lockdown for when things get tough and you want to start basically CCing the enemies and, you know, stop them from hitting you if you do not have your crew member with you. We will talk about the crew members shortly. Now, Magus Repair and Magus Lockdown you actually get from Little Ducks, which is actually done by leveling up through Prophet Taker and doing the toroids that way. So I do understand if you don't have one of these. If you have the extra platinum to spend, maybe just get yourself a rank 2 or 1 or whatever. They're not that expensive. Without ranting on too much, let's go in and talk about the mechanics of Prophet Taker and how to actually do it efficiently and easily. Let's go. To begin with Prophet Taker, let's go over some mechanics. Firstly, and the most important thing about Prophet Taker is killing her shields. Her shields have elements to it, and once you've done enough damage to the shields, the element will cycle to a new element. This is why we build our weapons with as many elements as we possibly can to consistently do damage to Prophet Taker. Now, it will take a bit of practice to learn and memorize each weapon that you have and which weapon does the respective element, but that comes with practice. Now, one of the elements that are missing are Toxin, for example. So what happens if we run into Toxin? Well, we can't do any damage, but the way we can force cycle the element is to hop out into your operator and shoot it with your amp, and it will force change the new element. So for phase 1 of the fight, you break the shields and then she will be vulnerable. You then need to hop into your necromech or use your Archgun launcher in your gear wheel to take down the legs once the legs are broken. She will stumble and fall to the ground. Now is your time to shoot the body. Then phase 2 will happen. The pylons will spawn. Now the pylons is where the Opticor or the Zenith will come into play. The reason we use these weapons is because they punch through the terrain or the bubbles of the pylons. So say you're using the Optical Vandal, for example. You hop into your Arc Wing, you fly near the pylons, you take them out. If you're using the Zenith, it's different because the Zenith has infinite punch through, so you can stand wherever and just shoot them through the terrain, which is really strong and good for speeding up your runs. Now once the pylons are killed, Prophet Taker will be vulnerable again. You hop into your necromech once more, you shoot the limbs, and then you hit the body. Then phase 3 will happen, where the shields are back, and you just repeat phase 1, take down the shields, shoot the limbs, then shoot the body. Then phase 4 will hit. The second pylons will be deployed. Then you just repeat phase 2, and you'll be good after that, and you would have killed Prophet Taker. Now once you have killed Prophet Taker, you move to the back behind by its bum, and then you place Effigy, which is Chroma's 4th, which doubles the credits. Around here I will place a marker for you to see in the recording. That's where it's easier to see where the loot spawns. Make sure that Effigy is running once the loot spawns so that you get the chance to double the credits, and make sure to be in the vicinity so that it doubles. Just a couple of mechanics to talk about here is firstly her shield walls. These are a bit of a pain and can get in the way of your run, as they cannot be shot through even with the Zenith, and they push you away. The best way to avoid these is to either keep void slinging into them, as it'll do a weird animation where it bounces you back and then you go back to where you wanted to void sling, or you can hop into your necromech to avoid this completely. Then watch out for Prophet Taker's laser beam by not standing directly in front of Prophet Taker. This does a lot of damage and instantly procs 6 electricity effects on your Warframe, doing a lot of damage. Easiest way to avoid this is to stand slightly off center from her, and you will avoid this. However, if you do have Arcane Guardian and you have Vex armor, you will be able to tank this no problem. Now one more thing Prophet Taker does is her rockets. These are a pain to deal with, and if you have enough armor you don't have to worry about these, but if you see them, just hop into your operator and use void mode, Magus repair your Warframe, and you're good to go. Then she will also do a slam on the ground that will push you back, but if you have poise from Unairu, you will negate this completely. And then of course the extra enemies that spawn around you are a big problem. They are the ones that mainly get you killed and do the most damage in my opinion. So a great way to avoid this is to shoot the reinforcement beacons or to kill them with Exotic Contagion so that you can proc your Dexterity Arcanes. You do have a few seconds in between each phase, so what I would recommend is killing them with your Exotic Contagion during this time. Now I know this is a lot, but don't worry, as you practice the fight it will become like second nature to you. Remember to always check your HP and always Magus repair when your HP goes low, as it only takes a few seconds. Then remember to also make use of Magus Lockdown to CC the enemies if they're doing too much damage if you don't have time to kill them. For the most part, Prophet Taker itself doesn't do too much damage. If you dodge the beams and missiles, it's mainly the extra enemies. When it comes to min-maxing the fight and being as efficient as possible, a crewmate from your Railjack will make this fight a lot easier, like I mentioned earlier, as it basically removes the worry of killing enemies. It allows you to focus solely on Prophet Taker for the most part. At level 9 for commanding from intrinsics, you can get access to your encore crew, and then you can use this crewmate in your Prophet Taker runs. You can get a crewmate from Ticker in Fortuna. I would recommend getting one with at least 3 or 4 endurance or combat, and that way you can put the extra 3 points into the respective points. You want your crewmate to have as high endurance and high combat as possible, as you can throw on a Tsar or a Tenet Cyclone and they will take the enemies out no problem. Now let's talk about running as a group. So if you're running as a group or public lobbies, it's a bit different, as you'll probably have a carry, but either way, to be an efficient group, I would say one person going for the legs, one person going for shields, one person worrying about the extra enemies, and then one person helping out with the pylons. This way you guys can be as efficient as possible and speed up your runs drastically. Now I didn't go into too much detail as a group because, well, this is more of a solo Prophet Taker on a budget or Riven list, etc. However, in a group you can run a group like Chroma and Wisp for support. It does help a lot to have a Wisp, especially with her motes and her health regen. Now when it comes to min-maxing your runs and doing Prophet Taker insanely fast solo and comfortably, you're gonna have to use a lot of Rivens. It is a big investment, but it is worth it because Prophet Taker is something that you're always going to do in Warframe whenever you need credits. It's the main credit farm. Getting yourself a Riven for each Zenith, the Tenet Detron, and your Zor is really important, as well as a Riven for your Corvus so that you can one-shot the limbs no problem. That way you can speed up your phases a lot. Now, using prime mods, of course, instead of the budget builds that I mentioned. When it comes to the Zenith, you want to get either flat damage, multi-shot. Those are the two most important roles, because the way the pylons work is they scale off of flat damage. Extra critical chance, bane mods, anything like that, or any elements do not add extra damage when taking out the pylons. You want to have flat damage, which is basically just damage and multi-shot. This way you can one-shot the pylons, and if you can one-shot the pylons, you speed up that phase as well. This is a very important Riven to get. For the Detron, you want an element, crit damage, multi-shot, or flat damage. However, be careful when it comes to adding elements, because you might mess up your current elements that you have, and then your order gets messed up. When it comes to the Zor, you want crit damage, or an element, or attack speed, but like I said, be careful about the elements. And so when it comes to the Rivens for the Corvus, you want to get as much damage as possible. Same thing. You can do electricity as well to stack on radiation damage, and you want crit damage, multi-shot, and damage. Why? Because you want to be able to one-shot the limbs. This needs to be re-rolled. It's not the best Riven. Crit damage and multi-shot and damage are probably, I would say, the best here. Now, remember how I said that we do not have Toxin. That is the one element that we are missing with this loadout. Now, that is a usual problem, and it does run into an issue like that. Now, the one thing you can do if you really want, that I have seen people do, although I don't do it, I just force change the element. You can use your Arcabex, and you can put Toxin, straight Toxin on this thing, and hop into your Necromech when the element's there, and press your 4th ability, and then spam that ability. Now, I did mention this in subtitles earlier on in the video, but when you hop into your Necromech in the fight, press your 2nd ability as the Voidrig, because it acts as Rhino's shield. That way you can always survive and your Necromech doesn't die. You don't want your Necromech to die. It's very important. And that is literally it when it comes to min-maxing. Min-maxing literally just means putting Rivens and prime mods so that your fight is faster and you do more damage. I have explained everything you need to know about Profiteer and all the things that you need. I hope this guide was plain and simple. I do apologize for the long video, but Profiteer literally just has so much to talk about that you cannot make it quick when you want to do it thorough. So this is a thorough video explaining everything. I'm going to put on a no commentary run at the end of this video so you guys can see how the run is done when you speed up and you practice the fight, and you can get to this point as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please hit that like button. I really don't want this video to flop. It took a long time to make and prepare. I really appreciate the support. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Leg it. Once that mother hits the overcharge radius, we're done for. No second chances.
Work your way to the torso.
Heads up, Sparky.
They're sinking fuel. Shields going back up. Outworlder, deal with those pylons. Shields are waiting. Whatever you're doing, it's working. That did it. She's vulnerable. Aim true, Outworlders. Heads up. Bombardment inbound. This should confuse your communication system.
Pylons back up. Wreck 'em. Loki, you're running out of time. You have to kill her now. You won't get another chance at you. We did it! We did it!